women who are proactive are called aggressive or brash. Men who have those same attributes are called destined for success. We have a whole different standard that women have to be held accountable for that are unfair.
Can we ever change that, or will that ever change for us?
Well, you know, when you look back at the history of civilization, you know, at one time women were in charge. And I think that for some reason we decided to, or it was taken from us, the control was taken from us, the power was removed from us. But I think that the more women that we have in powerful positions, in decision-making positions, that you see things changing gradually.
So how did you escape or not come into contact or in that environment of trying to, you know, I know just based upon your story, you never had to use anyone. You put in the work, you made the sacrifices. For 3 years you stayed in the radio station.
On the floor in a sleeping bag.
What was it for you? What made you make that decision?
Well, it's how you are reared. It's your environment. It's how I grew up in the projects. And I probably was no older than 5 or 6 years old when I was determined that, you know, it's kind of like you read these stories or hear these stories about people in the South saying that they would listen to the train and know that one day they could get on that train when they got old enough or had the train fare that they were going to, quote, get out of there. And that was my driving force, that I was determined that I was not going to remain in the environment that I was in. I was very sensitive to the pain and the misery that it goes along with being impoverished. I had a very supportive family that helped me understand that we were impoverished by choice because we had a bigger goal. We were trying to get my father through college. My mother ultimately ended up with her master's after being a very successful musician. She decided to go into nursing, an interesting story, and she became an LPN. And she got so ticked off because she said that the doctors and the RNs didn't have any respect for LPNs. So she went back and became an RN. And she still felt that RNs knew more about the patients than the doctors who come in to visit, that they're in there with them 8 hours every day. But she still did not feel that they were equipped, empowered, I guess would be the best word, to make the decisions that she wanted to make. So she went back and got her master's in social work, because then she could help determine what was happening with her patients. So I come from a family, I mean, I still support a boarding school that's 110 years old in Mississippi that my grandfather, her father, started.
Wow.
Yes, called Piney Woods Country Life School. And so even when you're impoverished, if you have a family that's goal-oriented, that if you're working towards something, you're not really impoverished, you're broke. And there's a difference between being poor and being broke. I'm the oldest of 4. So we were never told that we were poor. We were constantly reminded that we were broke. Particularly when we wanted to ask for something, we were reminded we had limited resources because we were in the projects and we were working towards a goal. The goal for my father was the first black CPA in Nebraska. I've already told you my mother's goal was to be able to help make health decisions for individuals in the hospital. And so when your environment is one of pushing you forward, one of the things, though, I think that has really compromised the African American community is we have concentrated almost primarily on education. And when you look around at wealth, it's really economic development.
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
economic empowerment. And you see, other cultures encourage us to concentrate on education because when you have the resources, the financial resources, you can change the narrative.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter how many degrees you
Yes,
have.
ma'am.
If you're broke, you're not changing the narrative. He who pays the piper picks the song. And there are no exceptions to that rule. One of the ways, again, going to everybody's favorite topic now, Donald Trump, the way he shut up his competition. He said to them, listen, I know how much money I put in your campaign. Every last person on that stage with him, he was able to bump off because he was the one paying the piper. Okay? We have always thought two things in terms of, and one was very correct, was owning land and getting an education. And unfortunately, that education didn't stress the importance of economic empowerment. So much of that land, tens of millions of acres that black folks owned. Black folks in the South would, when they, during times of slavery, would buy their freedom and then buy some land.
Yes.
But subsequent generations with education didn't want to be in Alabama or Georgia or Louisiana or Mississippi. They wanted to stay in Chicago or Detroit. So they sold the land. And now we're down to just a few million acres after having like tens of millions of acres. We're down to maybe something like I read recently, like 4 million acres. That's economic empowerment. And economic empowerment allows you to change the narrative. Education doesn't. So we concentrate on getting our kids good education, and then we encourage them to get, quote, a good job. I can't tell you how many years during my early days in Washington, D.C., my mother said, what is wrong with you? You have skills, you have talent. Why don't you go and get yourself a good government job? Have you had a nervous breakdown? You're sleeping in a sleeping bag in a business, washing up in a public bathroom and bragging about it like it's a badge of honor. You could be running some bureau or some division. The government never lays off. The first time the government started doing layoffs, was I at my mother's face. I said, so Mama, did you see this order? I'd be sitting there, I'd be clipping. I was like a clipping service for my mother. Every time a government agency had a cutback, or I would remind my mother, that's that good government job. But it is very much part of our culture. We have concentrated on education instead of economic empowerment. So we still are having to adjust to what other people think is best for us.
Ms. Hughes, that is so true, because I can think of my grandfather. We have like 10 acres of land.
That's right.
And my grandfather, I believe he finished 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
He built the house that my mother and my uncles and aunts back then, but they had a land. But you're right, we don't look now today even look to buy land. We want to buy the cars, we want to buy the homes, the big houses and the clothes and all this other kind of stuff, and go to college and with that badge of honor, but we're still lacking the
most important title that we can have is not a PhD, not a job description director of, it's owner. Owner is the most important title that we should be instilling into our young people, whether it's land that you own or your own business that you own, because when anybody can get a house or a car because they're financed, that doesn't make you a home owner.
Right.
That makes you a home mortgage payer, okay? The owner is the bank, and if you don't believe that, then just miss a couple payments and the real owner is going to show up at your door, put your stuff outside on the curb, and put a notice up on your door.
That's right.
Owner is the most important title, and it's the missing title, as I said. We have really thought that education, most education, 99% of it prepares you to work for someone else. Hello, that's not how you change the narrative on where your community is going, is working for someone else. We've made every major corporation in America. And you know, when Dick Parsons took over, Time Warner, Kent Chenault with American Express, Barack Obama in the White House, you know that we have the ability to do this for ourselves if white people are breaking the rules and putting us in to do it for them. the greatest testimony, that's what I understood when that light bulb went off in my head. That this distinguished group of African Americans were saying to me facetiously, if you think you're so smart, why don't you go and start your own radio station? This one's ours, and we're telling you what we want you to do. When other cultures and other people that you know, it's like, I say to people all the time, why do you all act like we're so shocked with white people? These are people who enslaved us. Do you realize how cruel our ancestors, the lives, the cruelty that was heaped on them for a long time, almost 300 years. So now you're expecting their descendants to have these bleeding hearts, which some of them portray as is human nature, to take care of your own.